You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Cards to the Moon. This is episode 386, and it is our recap episode of the National. I'm Clark from 5cardguys.com. You can also find me at 5cardguys, all spelled out, all one word, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. So, where do I begin? It was an incredible 3 days that I was there in Chicago, and I'm sure by now you've seen a lot of the social media coverage of the National, the biggest card show in the world. And what I'm about to share might not be new or earth-shattering, but I'll try to put my own little spin on things from what I've experienced while I was there and include little nuggets that I feel might have been overlooked by some. I do have 3 interviews that I did while I was there, and I'll play them throughout this pod episode. But first, let me start off on a positive note. And this is going to sound cliche, but it's true that the hobby is really buzzing right now. There are a lot of people, record numbers, and for the amount of people who actually came to the National this year, I thought the organizers did a great job getting people in to enjoy the show. Now, you probably saw countless clips of how long the lineup was at the National, and I did that walk myself one day going to the end of the line, which is blocks and blocks away from the front entrance. But the day I was there, they started letting people in 15 minutes early, and they got people in line with wristbands already on, ready to go. And the line itself, I thought, moved relatively quickly. And honestly, here's a hack for you guys if you go to the National next year. If you don't want to wait hours in line before the show, just come 30 to 45 minutes after the show starts, because by that time, the line's already moving. And I honestly don't know if I want to be the first or need to be the first 50 or 100 people to get into the show by lining up 1 to 2 hours in advance before doors open. I'd rather have a nice breakfast, a fresh cup of coffee instead. Okay, so once you get inside, you'll notice how big the venue is. That's obvious. Everyone talks about that. But as you go through row by row, one thing you'll really notice in this hobby that's super hot right now are signs everywhere that say, "We are buying. We're buying everything. We're buying heavy." But the truth of the matter is, not really. It depends, of course, what cards you have. Now, I did a little experiment with the 3 or 4 cards that I brought with me, and I went to about 10 booths to see who would be interested. They all had signs that they were buying, and out of the 10, 5 of them just said no right away, and they weren't interested in what I had, which is fine. I had brought 3 or 4 of my bigger cards. They were all slabbed by BGS. Loyal listeners will know I've talked about the Mike Trout First Bowman rookie refractor auto, numbered to 500. My Luka Doncic rookie auto, Blue Contenders Optic, numbered to 99. And I also brought my SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, his rookie card, the Blue Ice Parallel, numbered to 99. And that was a BGS True Gem. So perhaps it's because it was slabbed by Beckett that some of the dealers weren't interested. Maybe it wasn't the specific cards they were looking for. And I like to add, I did go to vendors that sold the kind of cards that I had. So it wasn't like I was trying to sell modern to a purely vintage card vendor. But I did notice when I was walking around that a lot of the vendors who were looking at the stacks of cards and going through them, they seemed primarily interested in PSA slabs, not surprising, and PSA slabs of popular insert or hit cards like the Downtown, the Uptown, the Kabooms, or any cards of GOAT players like Michael Jordan, LeBron, Tom Brady, Messi, and of course Ohtani. Those just seem to be the cards that most vendors were willing to take a closer look at. In other words, the more liquid the cards were, the better chances you could sell yours, as the dealers were looking to flip even at the show that same weekend. Now, there were a few dealers that did express interest in my cards, but a couple of them, when they couldn't see any really recent comps, meaning it wasn't as liquid as they would have liked, they straight up said that it's hard to buy cards like these, and they just passed on them. Now, I want to add that most of the booths that I went to were either stores, or they had stores back home where they were from, or they were just bigger dealers with plenty of inventory. Just found with them, if you didn't have those highly liquid cards, it was just really hard to get a deal done with them. Now, I did end up getting a deal done, but with a much smaller dealer who I thought was very fair. We had very good negotiation back and forth, and he was located in the upstairs pavilion, the international pavilion, where most of the smaller dealers were set up. But I'll talk about that section upstairs in just a minute. But before I move on to my next observation, I do want to say that there were a couple of dealers who comped out all my cards. They seemed pretty interested, and they were both willing to go up as far as 90% of last comps. And you know what? If I really needed the cash, I thought that was fair. But it was interesting to me that for my SGA card, which was a BGS True Gem, meaning that all the subgrades were 9.5, the last comp they both were going by was a Min Gem, which sold, I think, a month or 2 months ago. And when I mentioned that my card was a True Gem, for them it didn't really matter. The Min Gem was the last comp they were willing to negotiate on. So the bump I thought I would get with a True Gem wasn't really there. And if you're hoping to get a better price for it, if you have a True Gem yourself, I think you might be better off trying to sell it on eBay or an online auction. And just note that it's a True Gem. I think someone out there might be willing to pay that extra little premium. Okay, one more thing before I play the first interview that I had at the National. And I've already seen some of the content creators talk about this, but I do have to agree that there were plenty of dealers who just stickered some of their more popular, well-known cards at ridiculous, insane prices. I kind of got a sneak preview of that at the West Coast Card Show. For example, if the last comp for a liquid card was for $5,000, I would see that same card in their case for $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 even, i.e. 2x the comp. And I've heard if you bring up the last comp you offer, even at 105, 110, 115% of that amount, it's a quick no. So really, when you see dealers like that have something stickered that insanely high, I just don't see a point in trying to negotiate with them. Just save your time and move on quickly. It's actually the same point that my hobby friend Paul Hickey of the Sports Card Strategy Show makes when I talk to him. He's been on the pod before. I've been on his pod as well. It was great to connect with him again in person, and I had a chance to ask him what his game plan was for the National this year. You know, what were some of his strategies, and what did he hope to accomplish? And I thought he made some really interesting points, gave me ideas for me to take to the next card show. So let's play that interview right now. And then just after that one, I do have another interview with someone who has a drastically different strategy. All right, but first, here's Paul Hickey. All right, I'm here with my good hobby friend Paul Hickey. Again, loyal listeners of the pod will know who he is because he's been on our pod. I've been on his pod. So it's always great to meet him in person at big events like this. You were here yesterday. I just came in this morning. So you're in a better position to tell me what the National has been like when you compare it to last year, because we saw each other last year as well. So how would you describe the difference between last year and even this year, just 1 year later?
First of all, Cards to the Moon, what up? Good to talk to all of you guys. Clark, always good to see you, man. Okay, so I got in Wednesday afternoon, picked up my media pass around 4 o'clock, and then from 4 o'clock to 8, the show was like a nice, open. I mean, like a good amount of people, but you could walk up to every table. You could talk to every dealer.
Okay.
You weren't like 4 and 5 people back into the line. So it was nice. It was like an ideal card show for any of you out there that frequent card shows. I would say Wednesday evening at the National is probably the ideal card show. Now, today we're speaking on Thursday to give everybody context. Thursday afternoon. And I rolled in about 9:30 this morning, and I knew it was going to be busy, and you can go check out youtube.com/Paul Hickey if you want to see the little video of the line around like a mile-long line down the street around the block of people. Like, now being in the show doesn't feel as busy as I thought it was going to be when I saw what was happening outside. But Clark, I was like, is it Saturday already? I mean, that's what it felt like. And so I'm scared for Saturday. Like, I don't even know.
That's true. Yeah.
And so there's no data, but just anecdotally, it feels like this thing just keeps growing and there's more and more people. And I mean, that's what we all want. Now, the good news is I still feel like it's a good card show. Like, today I've been able to go around. Like, now you're in most tables 2 or 3 people deep, but you can still get through. You can still look at cards. I told you I just made a deal. I can talk about that if you want me to.
Yeah.
But yeah, not as many deals for me, but I have made a couple deals today, so that's good.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about those deals, but just want to mention to our audience, I knew Paul was here a day earlier, so I messaged him back, say, hey, how's the show? And he did say, oh, it's not so bad. I'm like, okay. I've been seeing all these Instagram reels and YouTube clips seeing how busy it was, and I trust Paul. And I come Thursday morning, and just like he explained, the line was blocks and blocks long, and luckily we both have media passes, so we're able to kind of get to the front a little bit more quickly. But yeah, it's a crazy vibe, atmosphere, even compared to last year. But yeah, so let's go back to why you came. You've been making deals, and of course, everyone knows Paul from his own podcast, Sports Card Strategy Show. So he talks about flipping a lot. I'm into flipping as well. So yeah, is there a game plan that you came with to this year's National in terms of what you want to accomplish?
Yeah, card shows are kind of tricky for me because when I first started going to card shows, probably back in like 2021, I feel like it's not like I got ripped off a lot. It's like I just wasn't I wasn't educating myself the way that I needed to be educating myself to not get ripped off. So it wasn't like people were maliciously out to overcharge me or underpay me. It was just more, I was a novice at card shows and I wasn't comping things properly. I still had a lot to learn. And I think the more card shows you go to when you're more experienced, it gets harder and harder to make deals, which is good because we want to be paying the right price for the cards, and we want to feel good about it. So card shows are tricky for me because now I'm at the point where like my default is like, well, I could just bid on that on eBay. Like and so I kind of look at vendor tables. My approach is to maybe comp out a few of the cards based on their sticker price, which is maybe unfair to them because I think a lot of people will overprice it on the sticker just because, not that they're trying to rip anybody off, but they just don't have enough time to comp everything out properly because prices change so often. But I still will comp it out based on the sticker. So for example, if they've got a $500 30-day average card at $1,000, which a lot of them do here at this show, I'll just walk away. Like, it's not even worth it. And so I think that's why I don't make a lot of deals, is because I kind of try to get through efficiently, comp a few cards out. How far over comps are they? Am I going to have to negotiate with this dealer just to get them back to comps? Right. I'm like a fairly common card. Yeah. But the game's different for everybody. I'll talk about the deal that I made in a second. I'm looking for more liquid cards. I think people who are looking for rarer cards can maybe make more deals at card shows like this because you have dealers from all over the country and all over the world that have specifically brought cards to this show for that purpose. And then so you're getting cards that maybe aren't listed on eBay shown at this show. Right. So I, for example, am making a lot of PSA 9 to BGS 9.5 plays. I like to sit at home, in my office and bid on cards.
Okay.
Or when I'm on the toilet, I call it stinker tinker time, and I'm just bidding on cards.
Nice.
And so I like to look at, like, what are pop 20,000 PSA 9 cards that I can just bid.
Okay.
Ken Griffey Jr. 1989 Upper Deck.
Yes.
Kobe Bryant 1996 Tops. Barry Sanders 1989 Score. These are all like pop 10, 15, 20, 22,000 cards in PSA 9.
Yeah.
So cool thing I like to do at a show like this is, yeah, I can bid them on eBay, but if I can walk up to a dealer table and actually examine the PSA 9 through the slab myself, then I feel like there's a lot better chance. So one of the deals I just made is somebody had 5 Ken Griffey Jr. 1989 Upper Deck PSA 9s, and 2 of them looked like they wouldn't have a chance at a BGS 9.5, and 3 of them did, so I bought the 3. So things like that are more for me at a show like this versus, like, you know, people who might be wanting to get something like for their collection that hasn't been listed on eBay in a while.
That's what I love about these shows, because I had a guest. When I play this episode, you'll hear different people with different strategies, and one of them is the opposite of you. They're looking for the grails, the true grails, the one-of-ones, the very scarce cards. And here you are going for the pop 20,000 cards and trying to crack them out and go BGS 9.5, which I love. And I shared this on your pod, actually, if you remember, my superfractor strategy. If you listen to my latest pod, I sold my Bobby Witt for 4x what I got for last year. So you got to be lucky with the superfractor strategy, but it worked for me this time around. And I'm using that cash to look for another nice superfractor at a lower cost. And hopefully there's one buyer. All you need is one with the superfractor strategy. So different ways to enjoy the National, different ways to... And I love what you're saying, because that's fully utilizing and fully taking advantage of the card show with what you want to accomplish. You can see them in person, and you know, on eBay it's hard, right? Like, it's like, what's the angle of the photo they took? It looks centered, but when you receive it, you're like, oh man, this is not 60-40, you know. So I love what you're sharing. Yeah, did you see anything while you were talking about Ken Griffey and the Kobe tops, which I saw in person because you showed me? Is there anything else you're kind of looking for at the National here?
Well, I think it would be cool to... Well, let me back up real quick. Congratulations. I'm super proud of you for selling a card.
Yeah. Thank you.
The superfractor strategy will forever be credited to you. It'll be something that I'll always talk about, but it's trademarked by Clark Kim.
Appreciate it.
Cards to the Moon 5 card guys. So 100% proud of you on the Bobby Witt Jr. Superfractor sale. That's awesome. I'll go repost your Instagram post, and I mean, I'm actually really proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Keep me posted, as I know you will, to the rest of the audience, on like what other superfractor you parlay that into. So I'm very intrigued by that. Sure. Are there other things that catch my eye or that I'm looking for? Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'd love your take on this. And if anybody out in the audience, obviously, like, share your take with us too. Comment on Clark's Instagram. But what cards will be going up? What GOAT cards will be going up in the next 12 to 60 months? So like 1 to 5 years. So like, and if we look historically back at so many cards, like even common cards, Michael Jordan 1988 Fleer like PSA 9s and 1987 Fleer PSA 9s, and Shohei Ohtani everything, even like the base, like overprinted everything.
Absolutely.
But like what Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, maybe other GOATs that are in the conversation will be like a grail card that I should be looking out for. So maybe that's my long-winded version of saying like my own version of a grail card, which is something that I can flip in 1 to 5 years, whereas most people's grail card is to hold on to it forever.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking for that. But I mean, those are kind of the names that I'm looking for.
Okay.
I don't know that now is a great time to buy LeBron. I talked about that on my last pod.
Yeah.
But Tom Brady, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the GOATs are back in a lot, right? So, but I agree with you about, I saw the LeBron video that you did, and I totally agree with you. It's a little risky. But yeah, it's with the other guest that I had, you know, it's I don't know. I find it too risky to go. Like what you're doing scares me a little bit. I'm, you know, to be honest.
On the cracking or looking for the goat?
No, I'm just like high pop cards, like that the you know, it could just.
Hey, it's a bulk play with a plan. So there's multiples. So actually, I'm glad you said that because I need to clarify the play. So the play is not to like go buy one Ken Griffey Jr. or one Barry Sanders or whatever, because then you're not giving. That's just one at bat or one swing during an at bat. You want to give yourself like multiple at bats. And so when you look at the upside versus the downside, it's really not like, I'll give you an example. So I started buying the Kobe Bryant PSA 9s, the 1996 tops. I started buying them back in September. The PSA 9s have now doubled in price since September. So what that has meant for me is, yes, it's a risk because I might get, I mean, who knows? BGS could give it an 8, an 8.5, whatever. But for the most part, I've gotten 9s and 9.5s, and I've had a pretty good success rate. Well, I'm making money on the BGS 9s based on where I bought them for. So if that trend continues or even stays the same, it's actually not very risky. It shouldn't scare. The only thing that should scare you is damaging the card when you crack it out. But I've got a pretty good track record on that too. Now, what scares me, honestly, is like buying one card that's, say, $10,000 and hoping that it gets to 15,000 or hoping that it gets to 20,000, when in reality it could stay at 10, and then that's actually a loss. That's like if I were to sell that, that's now an $8,500 card or a $9,000 card or whatever.
That's a very fair point. And and thanks for that clarification. For sure. And one last thing I wanted to ask you, you know, we're texting each other and you mentioned that you're going to be at trade night. You're going to set up. Is there a different kind of strategy you're looking for when you go to trade nights? Because, you know, it's not always buying and selling. But what kind of cards do you look for in terms of trade?
Trade night, that's a great question. You never know what you're going to get at a good old trade night. I mean, the national trade nights, I assume you've been to at least one or two in the past. They're great. I think the strategy's the same. But the hope is, I think, a little bit different. At trade nights, as a seller, it's better. Whereas for example, when you're walking around the show floor and you don't have a table set up at any show, you're at a disadvantage selling your cards. And actually, can I take a couple minutes and just rant about this? Okay.
By all means.
Okay. So I like to go around and shop my cards with people who are buying, just to understand like what their thought process is. Okay. Too many, like now everybody has this big ass sign that says buying everything, buying it, right?
True.
Well, there's one, and this is true, like one literally says we pay 79% to 90% of comps. Okay. That's a pretty big range. Yeah. Why in the hell would you ever sell your card for less than 85% of comps? Unless it's just a really shitty card that you need to get out of. Excuse my language. Check the explicit box when you post this to the podcaster's platform. Or just you beep it out because you post produce everything.
Yeah.
So, all right. Reason why is when you sell something on eBay, eBay's not charging you 15%. They're charging you like 13%.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with a guy trying to buy a couple of my cards today. And like, in fairness, it wasn't like he was trying to buy. I walked up to his table and said, whatever. And he's offering me 80% of comps. And I just said, well, I could sell this on eBay for 85% of comps. So it kind of doesn't, or 87% of comps. So it doesn't kind of make any sense at all as to why you would offer me 80.
Yeah.
And, you know, his response is something weird about like taxes at the end of the business year because you get like a 1099K from eBay kind of thing. And I'm thinking, don't tell me how to do my taxes. Let's stick to the point about like it just does. So my point is, you will find buyers at their table that will pay you closer to 90% of comps.
Okay.
Don't take the bait of, don't hand somebody a stack of cards or a case of cards and have them say, hey, we'll do 90% because we like these more, but for this stack, we're going to do 80%. Don't do that, because then you're getting effed times whatever that stack is of 80% cards. At a trade night, you can set up as the buyer, and so you can buy other people's cards, and you can sell your cards for whatever you really want to sell them for. I think you're more likely to sell your cards at a trade night for closer to comps and for something more reasonable, because it's more peer-to-peer sort of equal situation. What do you think?
Totally agree with you. On my last pod, I went to the West Coast Card Show, went to a trade night there, and I mentioned I sold more in the first 30 minutes than I did just walking around the showroom floor. So yeah, to your point, peer-to-peer is easier to negotiate with. You're kind of on the same plane, and you don't want to screw each other over. So yeah, I agree with that. And I think DC on the pod mentioned, sometimes when you're dealing with vendors, they're always thinking about how much it costs them to set up, and they're trying to offset that expense. So that's why they're like, yeah, I'll do 80 to 70, 75 to 80%. But at the end of the day, that's not my problem, right? So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
You just nailed it. I mean, that is a huge reason why the trade nights are better, because like we don't have the overhead cost that the vendors has, so we can make better deals. And I mean, that makes sense. They're thinking about like, if I move this in my shop, or if I have to move this at the show, what do I need to move this for? But you're right. Like, how is that so it all kind of comes full circle to like, that's also why card shows are tricky for me, because it's like, I know that. And so like, I think I have to remind myself to approach people, because I don't know. I don't want to make my assumptions over the last 5 years, project that on the situation when I could just go and see. So I'm proud of myself today, Clark, because I was a little cranky when I got here. I'm like, it's going to be the same old thing. Yeah. But I've made a couple deals because I've approached some people, and I've sold some things, and I've bought some things, which is what a card show is supposed to be.
Love seeing that Paul's growing as a collector and being nicer and kinder. But no, he's always been nice and kind, to me at least. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate, just always meeting you and catching up. It's always fun.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to create more content together, and just want to thank the listeners again. Appreciate everybody's support, and thanks, Clark, for having me on, man. I'm happy to create content with you anytime.
All right, another big shout out to Paul Hickey. I'll have to follow up with him to see how he did on those crack and resubmit of those Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie cards. Okay, like I said, now for a completely different strategy. I was able to speak with another great hobby friend, another repeat guest on our pod. His name's Brent Ware, aka @DeepValueInvestor. He used to work for Fanatics. He's branched out on his own since the last time we spoke with him, and he's helping advise more high-end collectors. And if you listen to his past interviews with us, you'll know that he is really about going after cards that have true scarcity over cards with higher grades but are less scarce. In other words, he's about buying the card, not the plastic. But we did have another interesting discussion point as well about what constitutes a grail card. And that term grail card seems to get thrown around a lot these days with so much money coming into the hobby. So I love his take on what is, or what specifically isn't or shouldn't be considered a grail card. So here's that interview right now with Brent Ware. All right, we are here with Brent Ware, aka Deep Value Investor on IG. If you're a loyal listener of the pod, you'll know that he's been a repeat guest, and I knew that he was going to be at the National, so I had to reach out to him. And I had a few more questions on my mind. If you check out his IG page, always great points.
Thank you.
And it's been you learn a lot from his IG. So go follow @DeepValueInvestor. Before I get into it, what brings you to the National this year? I know you've been before, but what brings you to the National this year?
Well, this year has changed a little bit for me. I'm here to meet with a lot of collectors, a lot of clients of mine with what I'm doing now with Wire Sports Advisory. And then just kind of getting a feel for the energy of collecting right now, what kind of cards are out and available, what people are considering a Grail card now. The market's really consolidated into a few names that everybody wants right now. LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, Curry, Brady. Like there's like a handful, and then everything else is kind of being pushed to the wayside right now. So it's really interesting to see it here in person and see like the energy of the National and how excited everybody is. And it's been awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. We were just talking off air how busy it is. There's 0 quiet spots at the National this year because there's so many people. You kind of mentioned your advisory service that you offer. Yeah. How's that been going, and what kind of questions are you being asked a lot by some of your clients?
Yeah, so it's Wire Sports Advisory, wiresports.com. Think financial advisor for sports cards collectors. So looking at people's collections like a portfolio and advising them unbiasedly. Like I don't have any skin in the game whether you buy a card or you sell a card. It's all just unbiased advisory. So in this hobby where people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on cards and people are trying to do it alone, it's really hard to get unbiased advice. So that's where I come in. I have a finance background. I have a psychology background. Been collecting for a long time, so it's a lot of fun. I would say clients right now are really starting to struggle with what they should buy because everything feels so expensive. And, they're all drawn to the same names that I just described, those 5. Like everybody wants Kobe and LeBron. So some of what I do is I help them expand their collecting horizons, get into new lanes. Like, have they looked at late 90s baseball PMGs? Have they looked at early 2000s, LT running back stuff? Like really kind of opening up, not just, a base Bowman Chrome Tom Brady. Like, what else can you get for that kind of money? Like, one of my clients really was looking at Topps Chrome rookie cards of LeBron James. Okay. Well, I helped steer him into a 2005 finest gold out of 39 instead of buying the base card rookie card for the same price. Right. So just kind of helping them like expand and see what else is out there for their money. So that's one thing you can do right now is instead of just saying like, what are the comps on a card? What's it worth? Like, what else can I get for that money? Yeah. Like really expand. Like I just sold a LaMarcus Aldridge for big numbers because it's the best card in the world of him. Right. Like you don't have to have only a Brady or a LeBron. So significance is as important as the card itself.
No, great point. But I'm wondering with your clients, I'm sure when they see all the, the Topps Chrome, LeBron rookies, the ones that are very liquid, how do you steer them away from, being tempted to just picking up as many of those as possible?
Right. So one of the things I like to focus on is the significance of a card, both the significance of the set, significance of the player, and then significance of like where that card fits in that player catalog. So what might be significant for Steph Curry may not be significant for a modern player today. Because, his catalog is very limited. Being in 2009 as a rookie, he doesn't have a lot of great cards. So what's significant for him is very different. So just the value of a card right now is being looked at as significance when I think that could be a big mistake versus is the set an Apex set? Is the parallel the Apex parallel? You look at a 2003 Topps Chrome LeBron, he's got the base card that's not serial numbered. He's got the refractor that's not serial numbered, but then he's got an X-fractor, a black to 500. And then, he's got a parallel structure that leads up to the gold to 50. So that's a significant card, whereas like a base card or refractor, just because it's expensive today, doesn't make it significant. If it wasn't a Grail in 2023, when the market was down, it's not a Grail today just because the price has gone up. That's my opinion.
Right. And we were talking about this too just a moment ago. I think that was one of your more recent posts, just asking the question, what constitutes a Grail card? Yeah. And just like you mentioned right now, just because the price has gone up doesn't mean it's a Grail card. And you hear that language all the time, right? Like, I'm going after this Grail card, I'm going after that Grail card. When 2-3 years ago, no one was talking about that card as a Grail card. No. So in terms of, do you have like any kind of factors that or checkboxes that you need to check off that you would say, okay, this would constitute a Grail, in my opinion?
Yeah, and obviously it's very subjective. The idea of a Grail, it's a very subjective term. Anyone can have their own definition for it. But something that's been really tuned into me lately is thinking about in 2023, like I said, when I was here at the National and the market was down, what was like the top LeBron collectors that I know, what were they after that year? Like what were those kind of cards that they were really desiring versus what I'm seeing people desire now? And so that's where I've been really reminding myself as I walk around the showroom, this wasn't a card I wanted in 2023. Why would I want it today just because it's tripled in price? Yeah. The card is not significant. If there's a pop count of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 of a card, I don't see how that could be a significant card. Yeah. I'd rather have a better card and a lower grade. So I'd rather have a PSA 5 of the Topps Chrome Gold LeBron than a BGS 10 of a Refractor, X-Fractor, or the Black, the 500.
Sure.
Like, so it's just like we talk about in baseball, the first Bowman autos. I want the most rare and scarce card that I can find, and sometimes it's going to be a LaMarcus Aldridge. Sometimes it's going to be a Drew Holiday instead of, a LeBron. So if it's a more significant card, that always piques my interest. I don't want to be piqued just because of the grade of a card. I want to be piqued because it's a rare and scarce card I never see.
I love that, and it kind of segues perfectly to what you always talk about, what you always preach about, and you've mentioned it every time you come onto our pod, and I want to bring it up one more time. When you look at cards for true scarcity versus high grade, low pop, just because of the subjectivity of grading, do you still see that going on in the hobby right now?
Yeah, I see it a lot right now, especially with GOATs, base cards of GOATs in a high grade, like just commodity cards of a Kobe. Think of a Metal Universe Kobe, Metal Universe Jordan that the green PMGs and the red PMGs are based off of, because it's a PSA 10. They're now 5X and 10X. Or think about a Tom Brady base Bowman Chrome rookie card. All these kind of base commodity cards, but high grade of GOATs, are really spiking right now, going parabolic. And that's probably the thing that reminds me of 2021 the most right now, is just seeing like very commodity cards. Now all of a sudden everyone's excited about them. When in 2023, you couldn't give away a Bowman Chrome base card of Tom Brady. They're, 7, 8K, maybe 9K, like for a high grade. Sure. Now all of a sudden it's a big Brady. And that's another thing I keep hearing is, I just want to get a big Kobe. But big is by price. And so they'll send me 2006 exquisite Kobe out of 100 with a faded auto, and it's $35,000. That's not a significant card in my opinion for Kobe. Out of 100 and exquisite's a pretty high, that's the lowest one I would want. I would want like out of 50, out of 20, out of 10. So just because in 2023 that was a $5,000 card. Now it's a $35,000 card. It's still not a grail for Kobe, I don't believe, just because the price has gone up a lot. So like just really like getting people to be patient, take some chips off the table. Any cards, I call them like dogs with fleas. Any cards right now that just have anything about them you don't like, if the auto's faded, sticker auto, it's not the right set, it's not an Apex parallel, now's a great time to sell, because people are coming into this hobby and they're not paying attention to if the auto's faded. Half of them don't even know what a sticker auto is, or that's not, so like now's a great time to take some chips off the table. Yeah.
Great advice. I love it. And you already mentioned 4 or 5 already, but is there anything else in terms of mistakes that new collectors can make right now? We're seeing, I'm sure, a lot of new collectors here at the National, and they're looking for cards. What kind of advice would you give those newer collectors?
Focus on the significance of a card and not just the value of a card. And then think about the boundaries in collecting. So like a boundary in collecting would be playing days versus non-playing days. Game used versus non-game used patches. Sticker autos versus on card. Stick to those tried and true collector boundaries. Don't just buy the sticker auto now because everybody's excited. Don't buy the non-playing days now just because everyone's excited. Or just understand that historically non-playing days, the reason why people collect playing days is because the manufacturers can just keep making these cards every year, every year, every year. So to me, it's weird to see a 2026 Peyton Manning, because I just know there'll be a 2027 and a 2028. And there's a reason why collectors put boundaries on it, because it makes it limited as far as the supply. Yeah. Right now, if you're willing to buy a sticker auto, if you're willing to buy non-playing days, if you're willing to buy, not associated with any game or event kind of patches, there's unlimited supply. And so that's a problem. So my recommendation is stick with those tried and true collection strategies. Playing days, on-card auto, game use, like that can really narrow down what's available out there. Like if I said, go buy a significant LeBron, that's a game used patch, on-card auto, low serial numbered, like let's really narrow it down. Playing days, of course, you're going to have a much more limited supply out there to choose from than if just go buy a big LeBron.
Right.
There'd be 1,000 big LeBrons out there today.
Yeah. I can see some people saying, oh, if you limit it down to that extent, especially how hot the hobby is right now,
yeah,
that's going to cost you $1 million. So is there any way that you could still focus on the significance of a card of a player you like, but within someone's budget that might be a bit lower?
It's getting really difficult, especially for certain players, to buy a significant card of LeBron or Kobe. And that's where it could be fun when the market's this hot. Maybe you buy a significant card of somebody that's not like your top player. It doesn't have to be a Kobe. Maybe it could be, Like I bought an Essential Credentials now, Chipper Jones to 6. Like incredible card, incredible set. No one's hyping Chipper Jones at this place, but it's an incredible set, an incredible card for Chipper Jones. I bought a Dan Marino Essential Credentials now to 8. Incredible card. It got caught in the flippers vortex, sold over and over and over again. So now it's gone down in value in a market that's up significantly. And Dan Marino's up significantly, but this specific card got sold too often. So you can look for opportunities like that. I just think it takes a little more creativity right now. And you got to like look for those spots and be patient. A lot of psychology in the market. So like that Dan Marino that sold too many times too quickly, people tend to like back away from it and think it's not a great card now just because it's been too available, when really it's still a great card. And so now I'm going to just hold it for a few years and it's not going to hit auction again, and watch. People will then consider it a great card again. It's the same card. So like, just watch. Yeah.
I love it. And the terminology flippers vortex, I'm going to remember that one. Yeah. I think you coined it. So
well, like the John Elway from the Central Credentials set is to 10. Hasn't sold since 2015. The Dan Marino's to 8 and has sold like 5 or 6 times in the last year and a half. They're both grails. The John Elway isn't any more of a grail just because it hasn't sold in a long time. They're both grails. So you can take advantage of that, because I think there's a lot of people in this hobby right now that don't have the liquidity to hold on to cards long term that are high value. And if they can't find someone else to buy it within a short period of time, I think they're almost forced to sell it. Or if they buy a more expensive card, they're forced to sell other cards to pay for it. So you're seeing great cards getting recycled through over and over and over again, which gives you an opportunity, but it's also scary because it makes you wonder, like, who are the end users for these? Yeah, right. And you see these grails just over and over and over again getting sold. It's like, who's the end user?
Yeah, no, great question. And I was going to ask you what you're looking for, but you kind of mentioned a couple of cards that you're looking for now. Anything else? Like we're at the National. Yeah. Any cards that kind of piqued your interest, even when you looked around?
So I've been recommending my clients lately buying early Prism golds and blacks, 2012 to 2014, of LeBron, of Curry, of Peyton Manning, like some of the like real collectible guys. But these earlier Prism sets, people look at an insert or a variation, and they think because it's not the true base set that it's not a great card. I bought a 2014 Prism Gold variation of Steph Curry. People were just clamoring over buying it from me. So it was a great card, but it was the variation gold. It wasn't the true. But now a true is $200,000-$300,000 for that card. So you can get like an insert in Prism in 2013 black 1-of-1s. I think those are kind of being overlooked because we've been so focused on the true base set that inserts in Prism, they're golds to 10. There's black 1-of-1s. Like there's great opportunities, or like a Kevin Durant. Some of these guys that aren't those, the just LeBron and Jordan that everybody's looking for, you can find some great cards of these guys for more reasonable prices.
Great advice as always, Brent. Appreciate your time as usual. And we always have to connect whenever we run into each other at these shows.
It's fun to be in person too. Yeah. Like meeting some of my clients for the first time in person, yesterday and today has been great. So we'll do video calls on Zoom and we'll talk about our collection and their portfolio. But they live all over the country, so it's nice to kind of have everybody come in one place. So.
All right, another big thank you to Brent, aka Deep Value Investor. Always love having him on the pod, sharing his insights. I'm sure we'll reconnect with him in the near future. Okay, now let me just quickly list some smaller observations or things I've heard at the National the 3 days I was there before I really get into a couple of critiques. Okay, so first, if you've never been to the National, but you've been following the hobby since the COVID era, like a lot of our listeners, you might have heard that the National, in the middle of summer, can get really hot inside the venue. And I'm happy to report, second time at the National, I think we can put that concern to bed. For the most part, the AC was great. I know there are some warmer pockets inside, but honestly, just walking around, I never felt super sweaty, other than when I was briskly walking from booth to booth. Wi-Fi, another big top issue back then. I personally didn't have any. I was able to connect for the most part, check comps online, but I know there are those who had more spotty internet. Maybe it was the provider, maybe it was the location inside the venue. So it's hit and miss, but I think for the most part, it was great. I'm sure it was a lot better than 4 or 5 years ago. Another observation, I know a lot of people are looking for the GOAT players, like I said before, and one of them was Ohtani And I overheard a conversation while I went to the bathroom from a couple of guys as they were washing their hands. One of them had an Otani card, and he was wondering what to do with it. And what I thought the other guy said to him was pretty solid advice. He told that guy that with any big Otani card he has, where the ROI right now is 3, 4, 5x from what he bought it for, he is selling right now, taking profit. And then with part of that cash, he's looking to buy another Otani that looks nice, but costs much less. And he's hoping that that card will continue to go up in price as the hobby continues to grow like it has. And certainly that applies to any big card of any big player right now in the hobby. Speaking of players, other names I kind of overheard at a number of booths was Jacob Misiorowski. He seemed to be in pretty high demand at the National. And maybe it's a sign that pitchers are getting a little more respect again in the hobby. We'll have to keep an eye out on that to see if that trend remains. Okay, this is not a surprise, but the lines at the PSA booth, they're always busy. You probably already heard that on-site express grading for, I believe it was $230 US, had to be shut down after the first day because they got so many cards. I believe they got more cards in that first day than they did all of last year's National, which is absolutely nuts, absolutely insane. And I remember making this joke before with some of my hobby friends. Is there any way of investing in Collectors Inc. or PSA? Because right now, they are just printing money. Now, I previously enjoyed on-site grading with PSA, even last year's National with my Bobby Witt Super. But with that option not available this time around, I decided to try out CGC for the first time with some of my lower Pokemon cards. And from start to finish, it was a pretty seamless process. So kudos to the CGC guys. It was easy to fill out online before the show. And then when I got to the show, there were 0 lines to just submit my print slip at the booth, which was then ready to pick up within a day. Now, if there was one thing to critique, I would say it was when I had to pick up my submission. I just thought it took longer than it probably should have. Like when I got there, I don't know, Friday or Saturday morning, there were 2 people in front of me, and just one person was working at the table. Another person was standing to the side to run back to get the cards. And I know I'm not the most patient guy, but imagine if CGC got a little busier, if there were more business for them. I'm just afraid of how they would be able to scale and not run into the same problems that we're seeing right now for PSA or TAG or BGS even. At some point, I would hope that one of the grading companies, it's probably going to be PSA because they're the leader right now. I hope that they would figure out a more seamless, more automated way to get your cards graded and back to you hassle-free. Now, that doesn't solve the issue of how much it costs to use grading services these days. And that's another issue altogether, as we know. So I'll save that one for another episode altogether. Anyway, I'll make an IG reel and a YouTube short of my CGC experience. And spoiler alert, I didn't get the grades I wanted, but the slabs itself, they look pretty nice. And that video will be part of my ongoing series on things I've never tried in the hobby till now. Okay, one last thing before I get into the cons. As I mentioned briefly earlier in the episode, I thought the International Pavilion, the space upstairs at the National, it's an amazing idea. It's a great way to get smaller dealers set up at the show. And like I said, I got a deal done with one of the dealers. Long story short, I sold my SGA that I picked up a couple weeks ago at the West Coast Card Show. I packaged it along with my Luka Doncic Blue Contenders Optic, number to 99 rookie auto. And in return, I got a Luka Doncic RPA from the Panini Opulence set. It was a BGS 8.5. But I love the fact that now I have a patch auto of Luka, and I think it's got some upside if Luka plays well for the Lakers in the coming years. I was also able to get cash on top of that for both cards, which ultimately helped subsidize my first vintage card, the 1949 Bowman of Jackie Robinson, graded a nice SGC 50, beautifully centered. If you didn't see that reel that I made recently about my first vintage card, I'll include that link in the show notes below. Okay, now for the cons or critiques about this year's National. Speaking of the International Pavilion, I know they had this upstairs portion last year, and the complaint then, if I remember correctly, is the same complaint now, which is that the rows between the vendors, between the dealers, is still super narrow. And I don't know why they had to make it that narrow. So please widen it next year. There's plenty of space in the upstairs portion to spread those rows apart. I know I said that last year, exactly that last year. And if you can imagine, one person with a backpack on, looking on one side of the row, and in that same row, another person with a backpack on, looking on the other side, guess what? You're not getting through that row because the backpacks will be touching each other and blocking the walkway. Okay? Now, another thing I think they need is a legit food court with plenty of seating so people can come, get good food, provide more options, and just chill for a quick lunch break or a quick snack break. I ordered a hot dog at the National because I was famished, and literally people were sitting beside the food vendor because there was nowhere to eat and sit. And if you go out to the main lobby area, people are sitting there too by the walls, eating whatever they just bought. So maybe consider the upstairs area where the International Pavilion was for a bigger food court. It's my just a thought. Now, speaking of rest areas, apparently there was one near the back of the showroom floor where kids were able to open packs and chill. But I don't think it was that big. I might be wrong. If I am, please correct me. But with more families coming into the hobby in general, with younger kids, I just think it'll be a great way to have them not become too overwhelmed while they're at a big show like the National. And creating a dedicated space for them, I think will go a long way in promoting the hobby for a wider demographic, including our younger collectors. Okay, I'm not going to go much longer on the cons because I do plan to have another podcast interview with DC Daryl, who was at the National, and I'm going to dive a little deeper at that time on, what can be done for next year's event to make it even better. I'm really curious to see what he has to say. So yeah, I'll save it for that episode next week. But let me end off on this positive note. And as cliche as it may sound, one of the best parts of going to an in-person card show is meeting the people you meet, the friends you have that you've only connected with online. And for me personally, as a podcaster, I'm really humbled when people come up and say they enjoy listening to our little pod week after week. And one of them was Arthur, who DM'd me before the show. And he's from Milwaukee. He was able to drive down from Chicago because it's not that far. And we just had a really good chat on what he came out to collect, what I collected, what I was able to buy. I was able to ask him how he thought of this year's National because I know he's been once before. And I just thought it was just a great conversation we had about cards and about the hobby that we both love. So let me end off this episode with that interview, and I will see you guys next week. All right, I am here with Arthur, who says he's a longtime listener, and I really appreciate all of our listeners, of course, but I'm so... best part about the show is meeting up with people in person. So, Arthur, you mentioned when we're chatting back and forth, this is your second National, is that right?
Yes, second National. Couldn't miss it for the world. Like last year was such an incredible experience. Basically revolved our entire calendar around making it a second year in a row. We had so much fun. So had to be back here for a full day and hope to hit a trade night tonight.
Yeah, that's always fun. And you didn't come alone, right?
No, I brought my 12-year-old son, his best friend, both big-time collectors, into soccer, into basketball, into baseball. Full disclosure, we're Yankee fans. Even we'll still listen to the. I know I got a soft spot for the Jays, but so we kind of were looking for a little bit of everything, and there literally is everything here. So it's been a a full day so far, but really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And you mentioned this is your second, so the first one was last year?
Yeah, so I came last year. We came on the last day Sunday. Had a little FOMO because we thought we were missing out on it, but turned out it was a perfect day to be there. Had a lot more room to walk around, made a ton of deals. Today is just bonkers how crowded it is, but it's still an incredible opportunity to meet new collectors, see new, old, vintage, everything here. So it's been a great experience as well.
For sure. And you mentioned new, old, you can find a little bit of everything. Is there anything in particular you're looking for here at the National to pick up?
Yeah, so living in Milwaukee, just a monster Brewers fan too. So I got a decent Bob Uecker collection going. So found a couple people with rookie cards, a couple that are just really high grades out of my price range, but I'm going to try to walk away with one today.
Nice. And that's the thing. I always say this. There's a few cards that you can only find at the National. And I feel like especially if you're really niche, especially if you're really specific in terms of what cards you're looking for, the National, you have to be here.
Absolutely. And even though you're hunting them down online constantly on a daily basis, to touch it, to see it, to hold it, you're not leaving the show without it. So that's what makes it so special.
Excellent point. Excellent advice. Even when we're talking off air, I loved your advice about you didn't do this on purpose, but coming on the last day when the crowds kind of are more manageable, I would say, on the Sunday. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, for me, that was the case. It doesn't make today's experience any less special. And, I've listened to podcasts and watched YouTube videos on countless dealers that have come year after year after year. You learn something every time. And I think next year we'll take a few lessons from today's experience, put that towards next year, probably find a place to stay overnight so we can pace ourselves a little more instead of cramming it all into one day. But either way, it's a great experience.
Amazing. And you guys are lucky to just be able to drive an hour and a half. I know it's not super close, but you can drive and you can go home afterwards. I'm kind of missing my home a little bit now, but next year it's going to be in Chicago again, so you got to come next year.
Absolutely. We were thrilled to see it's in Chicago one more year before it goes to Detroit. So this is so convenient. It's really a great place. They've got it figured out. This convention center is amazing. It's endless, though. I keep going into rooms I didn't even know were there. So, you really do have to pace yourself.
Arthur, appreciate your time and appreciate you listening to our pod.
Clark, you guys do a great job. I've said this before to you. I never collect WWE or Pokemon cards, but I absolutely love you guys talking back and forth on it. Big baseball collector, so I don't miss a week. You guys do a great job. Keep it up.
Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.